In Miami, my wife disappeared. Her lover's truth crushed me. If this story grips your heart, smash that like button. Drop a comment and subscribe to Viora for more raw tales that hit deep. I came home to an empty house, her wedding ring glinting on the counter like a cruel goodbye. Natalie was gone, and the silence screamed she wasn't coming back. My name's Aaron Chandler. I'm 36, a mid-level exec at a Miami wealth management firm pulling low seven figures with a knack for turning clients' portfolios into gold. Natalie, my wife of 6 years, was my everything, bright fierce. The kind of woman who could charm a boardroom or light up a dive bar. We had a good life, a sleek condo and Brickell weekends sailing Biscayne Bay, plans for a kid someday. People envied us. Hell, I envied us. Until that night in April 2022, when I walked through the door and found nothing but her ring. We'd had a fight that morning. Nothing major, just stress. I'd been grinding on a merger deal late nights at the office while Natalie was juggling her event planning business. She'd snapped about me missing dinner again. I'd fired back about her working weekends. It was normal, I thought couples fight. But when I got home at 9:47 p.m., her car was gone. Her phone locked on the kitchen island and every drawer untouched. No note. No sign of a struggle, just that damn ring mocking me. I called her sister Claire Wheeler first. She's not with me. Aaron, Claire said, her voice tight. You sure she didn't just need space? I checked with her best friend Mia Larson, a realtor who knew Natalie's every move. Haven't heard from her since lunch. Mia said she seemed fine. Fine. That word burned. I tore through the condo looking for anything, a receipt, a text, a clue, nothing. By midnight, I was on the phone with Miami PD reporting her missing. The officer was polite but skeptical. Sometimes people just leave, Mr. Chandler. Give it 24 hours. I hung up my chest tight and stared at her ring. Natalie wouldn't just leave, would she? The first twist hit the next morning. I was at the precinct pushing for a search when my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. Stop looking. She's where she wants to be. My blood ran cold. I showed it to Detective Lena Torres, a no-nonsense cop with a scar above her brow. Could be a prank, she said, but her eyes narrowed. We'll trace it. The trace led nowhere, burner phone untrackable. But that text planted a seed doubt. Was Natalie gone because she chose to be? Was this one of those cheating stories I'd heard about where love unravels in secret? I didn't sleep. I printed flyers with Natalie's photo, her hazel eyes that half smile, and plastered them across Miami Coconut Grove South Beach. Every coffee shop and gym she loved. Claire moved into our guest room, her quiet presence keeping me sane. She's out there, Aaron, she'd say, handing me coffee. But her voice wavered. My colleague Ethan Brooks, a junior analyst with a hero complex, took over my meetings so I could focus. We'll find her, man, he said, clapping my shoulder. I nodded, but the doubt grew clawing at me. A week later, the second twist, I hired a PI, Vince Russo, a grizzled ex-cop who smelled like cheap cigars. He dug into Natalie's life bank accounts, emails, social media, found something Vince said, sliding a folder across his desk. It was a credit card statement, a charge from a bar in Wynwood the night she vanished. Natalie hated Wynwood's hipster vibe. She was there with someone, Vince said. Bartender remembers a guy tall, slick, called her babe, paid cash. My stomach twisted. A guy? I gripped the folder, picturing Natalie laughing with someone else, her ring already off. I drove to the bar, the Rusty Anchor, and showed the bartender her photo. He nodded. Yeah, her and some dude looked cozy. Cozy. The word hit like a punch, describe him, I growled. The guy shrugged. 30s, fancy watch, dark hair, didn't catch a name. I left my hands shaking and sat in my car, the Miami heat suffocating. Was Natalie living a double life? I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was stacking up. The third twist came a month later. Vince got a hit on Natalie's phone. A brief signal pinged from a warehouse district near Hialeah, then gone. I drove there with him, ignoring his warnings. The place was a maze of rusted shipping containers, the air thick with oil and salt. We found nothing but graffiti and broken glass. She's not here, Aaron, Vince said, his voice soft for once. I kicked a crate, the sound echoing. Then where the hell is she? I shouted. He didn't answer. Nobody did. By summer, the case was cold. Detective Torres called less often. Claire went back to her life, though. She checked in daily. Ethan kept me grounded, dragging me to the gym when I started spiraling. You're not alone, Aaron, he'd say, spotting my bench press. But I was. Every night I'd sit on our balcony. Natalie's ring in my hand, replaying that fight, the text, the bar. Was she with him, Chad Harmon, the ghost I'd named in my head? Was she happy free, while I drowned in her absence? The fourth twist hit in October at a client dinner I'd forced myself to attend. A woman approached me, Lila Hayes, a corporate lawyer, all sharp heels and sharper eyes. I knew Natalie, she said, her voice low. We worked an event together last year. She mentioned someone, a guy she was scared of. My fork froze midair. Who, I demanded. Lila hesitated, didn't say a name, just said he wouldn't leave her alone. She seemed rattled. I thanked her, my pulse racing, and called Vince that night. Find this guy. I said Chad, Harmon, or whoever he is. Months bled into a year. Vince chased leads, none panned out. The flyers faded on lampposts. Friends stopped asking. But I didn't. I checked Natalie's old laptop, her social media, her calendar, nothing. Then one night I found a photo tucked in a book she loved. A Polaroid of us on our honeymoon, laughing in the rain. On the back, in her handwriting, "Forever Aaron." I broke down the ring, cutting into my palm. If she was gone by choice, why leave this? I clutched the Polaroid. Natalie's "Forever Aaron" scrawled on the back, and swore I'd find her no matter what it cost. The doubt gnawed at me, whispering she'd left with Chad Harmon. But Lila's words about a guy Natalie feared kept me moving. I wasn't giving up. Not yet. Vince Russo, my PI, became my shadow. By spring 2023, we'd burned through $50. 000, chasing ghosts. He tracked the Wynwood bar lead, digging into regulars who might have seen Natalie that night. Got a name, Vince said one muggy afternoon, tossing a grainy photo on my desk. Chad Harmon runs a logistics company. Flashy type. Bartender ID'd him. The guy in the photo was all teeth and tailored suits. His arm around a woman at a club. Not Natalie, but close enough to twist the knife. Find him, I said, my voice steel. Vince nodded, lighting a cigar. Already on it. I kept working, managing portfolios by day, hunting Natalie by night. Ethan Brooks. My colleagues started joining me on late-night drives, checking sketchy motels and bars where Harmon might show "You're not alone, man." Ethan said, his voice steady, as we staked out a dive in Hialeah. I appreciated it, but alone was all I felt. Natalie's ring heavy in my pocket. Claire called weakly, her voice softer now. "Aaron, you need to live too," she said. "Live without Natalie, that wasn't an option." The first twist hit in June. Vince got a tip from a contact in Miami PD. A security camera from a gas station near Wynwood timestamped the night Natalie vanished. I met him at his office, a cramped hole smelling of stale coffee. He played the footage. Natalie in her red jacket, stepping out of a black SUV. Chad Harmon was at the wheel, his face clear under the neon glow. She looked tense, her arms crossed before getting back in. "No audio," Vince said. But she didn't look happy. My fists clenched. "Where'd they go?" Vince shook his head. "Tape ends there. SUV's plates were stolen. Dead end." I slammed the desk, the sound sharp. "Dead end or not?" Harmon had answers. I tracked Harmon myself against Vince's advice. His logistics firm, Harmon Global, had an office in downtown Miami, all glass and ego. I waited outside one evening, my car parked across the street, watching suits file out. At 7:12 p.m., Harmon emerged laughing into his phone, a gold watch glinting. I wanted to ram him, demand where Natalie was, but I held back. Instead, I followed him to a high-rise in South Beach where he disappeared into a penthouse. I noted the address and called Vince. Tail him. I said every move. The second twist came a week later. Vince hacked into Harmon's email. Don't ask how, and found a thread with a guy named R. Salazar. The messages were cryptic, mentioning cargo and delivery to a port in Jacksonville. One line chilled me. The redhead's secure. No issues, redhead. Natalie's hair was auburn, close enough. My heart raced. Was this a cheating wife story gone wrong or something? Darker, I showed the email to Detective Torres, who frowned. Could be trafficking. She said, her voice low. We've seen this before, I'll escalate it. Trafficking. The word hit like a freight train. Natalie, my Natalie, caught in something that vile, I couldn't breathe. Torres got a warrant, and I pushed Vince to dig faster. He traced Salazar to a shipping company with ties to Harmon's firm. They move containers. Vince said, spreading port records on his desk. Legit on paper. But my guy says they smuggled drugs. Maybe people. I stared at the records, my hands shaking. Find the container, I said. Vince nodded, but his eyes said it was a long shot. I didn't care. Long shots were all I had. By fall, the search consumed me. I took a leave from work, letting Ethan handle my clients. My condo felt like a tomb. Natalie's clothes still hanging in the closet. Claire stopped by one night, her face drawn. "Aaron, you're killing yourself," she said, setting a lasagna on the counter. "What if she's gone?" I snapped harsher than I meant. "She's not gone. She's out there." Claire flinched but stayed her silence louder than words. I apologized, but the rift lingered. The third twist hit in December at a dive bar where Vince's contact worked. The guy, a wiry ex-con named Joey, claimed he'd overheard Harmon bragging about moving a problem to a safe house in the Everglades. He mentioned a woman Joey said sipping a beer. Said she was trouble but handled. I leaned in, my pulse hammering. "Where's the safe house?" Joey shrugged. "Didn't say, but Harmon's tight with some bad dudes. Watch yourself." I slipped him $500 and left the humid night closing in the Everglades, a needle in a swampy haystack. I went alone, stupid, but I couldn't wait. The Everglades were a maze of mangroves and gator-infested water. I rented a boat, followed Joey's vague directions, and found a shack on stilts, lights flickering inside. My heart pounded as I crept closer, the air thick with mosquitoes. Through a grimy window I saw a man, not Harmon counting cash, no Natalie, but on a table, a red scarf just like hers. I snapped a photo and got out before anyone spotted me. Back in Miami, I showed Vince. "That's Harmon's crew," he said grim. "We're close." The fourth twist came in March 2024 when Torres called. "Feds raided a port in Jacksonville," she said. "Found women in a container trafficking victims. One might be Natalie." My knees buckled. "Is she alive?" I asked, my voice raw. Torres paused. "We're running DNA. Come to the station." I drove the Miami skyline a blur. Hope and dread choking me. At the precinct, Torres showed me a photo. A gaunt woman, auburn hair, eyes empty. Natalie. My wife alive but broken. I waited in a sterile room, Natalie's ring burning in my pocket. When they brought her in, I barely recognized her, thin scarred, her smile gone. She didn't speak, just stared like I was a stranger. "Natalie," I whispered, reaching for her hand. She flinched and my heart shattered all over again. This wasn't the reunion I dreamed of. This was something else. Something I wasn't ready for. Natalie's flinch cut deeper than any knife. She sat across from me in that sterile precinct room, her hands trembling, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. The woman I'd spent 2 years searching for was here alive, but the Natalie I loved, the one who'd dance in our kitchen to old jazz records, was gone. I gripped her ring in my pocket, its edges biting into my palm, and swore I'd bring her back. Whatever it took. Detective Torres stood by the door, her face soft but guarded. "She's been through hell, Aaron," she said, handing me a file. "Feds are debriefing her, but she's not talking much. Trauma's deep." I nodded, barely hearing her. My eyes locked on Natalie. The file detailed her ordeal: kidnapped from that Wynwood bar, drugged, smuggled north in a shipping container, then shuffled through safe houses for 2 years. Chad Harmon's logistics firm was a front for a trafficking ring, moving women like cargo. Natalie had been their prisoner, stripped of her name, her hope, her fight. My stomach churned. I'd imagined a cheating wife story, some sordid affair. The truth was worse, unimaginably worse. I took her home that night, the Miami skyline glinting like it was mocking us. Our condo felt wrong, too bright, too clean for the shadow of her pain. Natalie sat on the couch, clutching a mug of tea Claire had made, staring at the floor. "You don't have to talk," I said, my voice low, steady, like I was calming a client. "I'm here." She nodded, but her silence screamed. Claire, hovering in the kitchen, shot me a look, half pity, half warning. "Give her time, Aaron," she whispered. Time I'd given 2 years. What was a little more? The first twist came a week later. Natalie started therapy with Dr. Elena Ruiz, a trauma specialist recommended by Torres. I drove her to the sessions, waiting in the car, the humid air thick with questions. One evening, she came out, her face pale, and handed me a folded note. Read it later, she said, her voice barely audible. I waited until she was asleep, then opened it in the dark of our balcony. Her handwriting was shaky. "I saw you in my dreams every night. It kept me alive. I'm sorry I'm not her anymore." My throat tightened. She wasn't apologizing for leaving. She was apologizing for surviving. I crumpled the note, my eyes burning, and vowed to prove her wrong. The feds kept digging into Harmon's ring. Torres called with updates. Chad was in custody, singing to cut a deal, naming higher-ups in exchange for a lighter sentence. He mentioned Natalie. Torres said, her voice clipped. Said she was special to him, obsessed. Maybe we're looking into it, obsessed. The word twisted in my gut. Had Harmon targeted her, lured her to that bar? I pictured his smug face, that gold watch, and wanted to break something. Instead, I met Vince Russo at a diner sliding him a bonus. Keep tabs on Harmon. I said anything he says about her, I want to know. Vince nodded, pocketing the cash. You got it, Chandler. Natalie's silence broke in fits and starts. One night she woke screaming, her nails clawing the sheets. I held her, whispering, You're safe, Nat. I've got you. She sobbed, her words spilling like a dam burst. He was at the bar, she said, her voice raw. Chad, he said he was a client, offered me a drink. I said no, but he kept pushing. Then, everything went black. My arms tightened around her, rage boiling under my skin. Harmon hadn't just taken her. He'd planned it, stalked her. I kissed her forehead, my jaw tight. He's done hurting you, I said. She didn't answer, but her grip on me said enough. The second twist hit in June 2024 at a deposition for Harmon's case. I sat in the back watching as Natalie faced him across a table, her hands steady, despite the tremor in her voice. Harmon's lawyer, a slick guy named Paul Decker, tried to paint Natalie as complicit, suggesting she'd flirted at the bar. I gripped my chair, ready to lunge, but Natalie cut him off. He drugged me, she said, her voice like steel. I woke up in a crate, chained. You don't flirt your way into that. The room went quiet. Decker's face red. Harmon stared at her, his eyes cold, and I saw it, obsession, just like Torres said. I leaned forward, my fists clenched, but Torres beside me grabbed my arm. Not here, Aaron. That night, Natalie told me more. Harmon had singled her out at an event she'd planned months before the bar. He kept calling, texting, saying he could boost my business. She said, her eyes distant. I blocked him, but he didn't stop. She paused, her voice breaking. I didn't tell you I thought I could handle it. I took her hand, my heart heavy. You don't have to handle everything alone, I said. She nodded, but the guilt in her eyes lingered, a scar from years of captivity. The third twist came in August, when Vince uncovered a bombshell. Harmon's firm had a silent partner, a real estate mogul named Victor Salazar, the R. Salazar from the emails. Salazar's money funded the trafficking ring, and he'd been at that Wynwood bar the night Natalie vanished. Vince showed me a photo. Salazar, mid-50s, silver hair, shaking hands with Harmon at a gala. He's untouchable, Vince said, tossing the photo on my dash. Cops can't pin him without more. I stared at the photo, my mind racing. Salazar wasn't just a partner, he was the puppet master, and Natalie had been his prize. I took the lead to Torres, who cursed under her breath. Salazar's got friends in high places, she said. We need hard evidence. I didn't wait for the feds. I called Ethan, who'd started digging into Harmon's finances for me. Look for Salazar's accounts. I said, anything tied to Harmon's firm. Ethan, ever, the loyal wingman, hacked through offshore records. Don't ask how. And found a shell company linked to Salazar funneling cash to Harmon's logistics operation. I handed it to Torres, who grinned for the first time in months. This might do it, she said. The fourth twist hit in October at a safe house raid in Tampa. Feds, tipped off by Ethan's find, busted Salazar's operation, freeing 6 women. One, a brunette named Mara, knew Natalie. She saved me. Mara told me, her voice hoarse, at a hospital where I'd gone to meet her. In the safe house, she'd whisper to us, "Keep us fighting." Said her husband was coming. My chest tightened. Natalie, even in hell, had held on to me. Mara gave me a letter Natalie had written, smuggled out but never sent. I read it alone, the paper trembling in my hands. Aaron, if you find this, don't hate me. I fought to come home. I love you. I folded it, my eyes wet, and drove home to her. Rebuilding wasn't easy. Natalie's therapy continued, her nightmares fading, but never gone. I took a demotion at work, trading late nights for time with her. We moved to a smaller place in Coral Gables, leaving the condo's ghosts behind. Claire visited often, her warmth a bridge between us. Ethan, now a partner at the firm, threw us a quiet dinner toasting to survivors. Natalie smiled that night, a flicker of her old self, and I held her hand under the table, her ring back on her finger. But scars don't vanish. Some nights I'd catch Natalie staring out the window, her face unreadable, and wonder if she'd ever feel whole. I'd check the locks twice. Harmon's face still haunting me, though he was serving 20 years. Salazar's trial loomed, and Natalie would testify, her courage humbling me. I loved her fiercer than ever, but love doesn't erase trauma. We were together, but the road ahead was long, paved with trust. We'd have to rebuild step by step. Now I'm watching her sleep, her breath steady, the Miami moonlight soft on her face. I wonder if we'll make it, if we can outrun the past. I don't know, but I'm here, and she's fighting. That's enough for now. What would you do if the person you loved came back broken, Would you stay or let go? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe to Viora for more stories that tear you apart and lift you up. This is Aaron Chandler signing off.